Okay, Susan. I guess we're just going to talk about, just time at Cornell, along with your experience as an alum after Cornell, and kind of how you're maintaining a relationship with the university.
Duck out with Mary. Thank you.
And just kind of get to know you a little bit and how your things you're doing. Professional life and on behalf of Cornell.
Okay, sure. Should I start with my time at Cornell? I'm one of the older alumni.
Yeah, so we're about to go live in 5 seconds, and then I'll prompt you to do exactly that, okay?
Okay.
All right, well, welcome back. We are moving right along with Susan Chang, live from Singapore. Hello, Susan, class of '84. Quick check on, before we get talking to Susan, quick look to see where we are. We are at $4.5 million from 7,876 gifts. So with 3.5 hours left in giving day, a great day shaping up again. So thank you all for your support and staying with us all night and working your way through our challenges and unlocking lots of great bonus money for the various areas of Cornell. So Susan, how are we doing? How was Singapore tonight?
Oh, pretty good, thanks. Actually, we're in the morning. We're next day.
Oh, it's morning for you. That's right.
Yeah, so it's 12 hours ahead of you. So we started with a lovely day here, nice and sunny. Let's see. Can you see that? Oh
yeah, look at that. Sunny. Very nice.
So I'm starting off the day, and you must be tired all day working on this, but it sounds like you've got great contributions, so that's fantastic.
Yeah, it's been a great day, and it's always, this is a long day, but it's great to feature all these different areas of Cornell and all the different faces of Cornell. Everyone kind of has a unique Cornell story, so to be able to tell that and share it out, I think is really valuable and just shows the diversity really that exists within the Cornell alumni community. So tell us a little bit about your Cornell story, how you found your way to Cornell and your experiences there, and what you did during your time on the Hill.
Well, actually, I'm American, not Singaporean. So I grew up on the East Coast, mainly in Connecticut and Philadelphia, went to New Jersey, back to Connecticut. So in my family, Asian American, going to Ivy League school was important. And I chose Cornell when I was 14. I looked at all the different colleges, and I liked the environment where Cornell was located. In the countryside, I was interested in wildlife biology. It had a very strong eco program. It had saved the peregrine falcon from extinction, and I thought, oh, that's really cool. When I went up to visit the campus, I loved it, and so I applied and got in, and I was very, very pleased because I had gone to 3 different high schools all on the East Coast. And when I got there, it was 1980, so quite a long time ago. But West Campus was all those old Army barracks. And so we had Sperry Hall, which was a mixed co-ed dorm, so that was new at the time, mixed by every other room. And made some great friends there. And then headed up to West Campus and lived in Gulch for a while as well, which is a beautiful building. Then headed off campus. And when I went to Cornell, it was to study biology. And I found that actually my chemistry wasn't so good. So I moved into a different area, which I really love, which is international relations and economics. And so, it took me on a different path, but it's just been a fantastic experience. And so some of the things I have written down, which I felt really helped me, that was my life after Cornell as well. The economics and international relations. I had worked in the Middle East department, so it was an area I wasn't so familiar with. Um, Learned about the Middle East. I also worked with the Asia Studies department, and I continued to take French. So coming out of school, I was able to apply all this and have lived around the world working for multinationals. So it's been fantastic.
Well, yeah, I mean, that is a thorough experience. Tell us a little bit about how you have kind of maintained a relationship with Cornell since graduating.
Well, it's been interesting because I've lived in many different cities, and every city I go to, I just check out if there's a Cornell Club. It's great for just finding people, finding a social network, um, for professional networking as well. So after Cornell, I went to LA to work for a Japanese trading company, Mitsubishi International. I met up with the Cornell Club there. Then after 3.5 years, I went to Philadelphia for a business school at Wharton. So went to Cornell events there. And after business school, I joined MasterCard in New York City, and a huge Cornell alumni crowd there, lots of activities. And the Cornell building had just opened as well, the Cornell Club, right across from Grand Central. So that was fantastic. And with MasterCard, then I got posted to Paris. So then I joined a few Cornell Club sessions there. And that was interesting because the event I went to, the head of the Cornell Club there was in his 40s. He was an international lawyer. It was a dinner, and most of the other Cornell alum were in their 70s and 80s, but they were French. And so for them at their age to have done an exchange to the US, to US University was very unusual. So it's fascinating to listen to their stories. After Paris, I moved to London, joined some Cornell alumni functions there as well, and it was a very active club. So that was fun. Then I moved back to France in a rural area, so there wasn't much activity there. But then I moved to Singapore about 12 years ago, and in 2003. So I joined the Cornell Club here in 2004. There's a huge alumni base here. It's about 800 on the database. So Singapore's small, but very active because they send a lot of students over to Cornell to study. And I joined the Exco, became head of the Cornell Club alumni for 2 years, about 10 years ago, and then broke off and headed up the Cornell recruiting con, the ambassadors, admissions ambassadors program. So I've been running that for 8 years and have always been involved with the Cornell Club on its Exco. So it's been fun building the club because at the time I joined, it was very lovely Exco, but we didn't have a lot of activities. So I made sure that there were activities every month to kind of activate the alumni base. And at first, initially, some of the events I held were maybe 2 people showing up, 3 people, and then it would grow to maybe 6 or 8. Some events might have 30. So there was a momentum building. And the presidents who came after me, there was one who was there for 1 year, and then after that, Sonia Ong, who ran it for 8 years, continued that constant monthly activity that we would hold where people could pop in. So usually our events are about, like 15 to 30 people, which is very nice. There's a monthly drink session now held. It's being held at a new place. I'm trying to think of the name because that venue is actually has been opened by a Cornellian who did his master's in hotel here in Singapore. So that was really cool. And so then with the recruiting, before they only interviewed the early decision candidates, which are about 40 each year. And there's actually about 500 who applied to Cornell from Singapore. Yeah, so what we did about the past 2 years was to try to extend the alumni meetings to the regular decision candidates. So we have it started about 30 alumni in the database. Now we have about 60 alumni in the database who help out during the regular, early decision is still about 40 some students, 44. regular decision candidates, what we do is we try to target the schools where the attachment of the students might be appropriate to Cornell. And so we've done about 80 in meetings during the regular decision phase, where we identify students, but then anybody who's heard of us and wants alumni meeting, we always offer that to them. And so that's been very successful. We just had our April acceptees reception 2 Sundays ago, and that was lovely. And it was a big group of students who were accepted this year, about 40. So let's hope the yield is very good for us.
So as you're kind of hopping all over the world, it seems one of your priorities is to connect with that Cornell Club.
Yeah, Cornellians are just lovely. They're just down to earth, and I love the fact that people are coming from so many different majors. So I can do the graduate alumni thing, but that would be all business. I went to business school, and those people are in banking or finance. With Cornellians, I meet people who might be doing solar panels, or environmental issues, or medical research. So it's just fascinating, and it's a lot of fun. And also here in Singapore, it's very unique because a lot of these students have been sent to Cornell through government sponsorships. So they're the best and brightest, coming from Singapore. They're bonded to their government, so the government pays for their education, but then they come back to work within the government for about 6 years, and they work in different government sectors. And so they are very bright, very hardworking, and contribute a lot. And the community feels quite strong. So it's been very nice.
When you're talking to students who are thinking about applying to Cornell, do you kind of have a standard piece of advice you give them right out of the gate, or is there just a general message you send them about why they should choose to go to Cornell, or why they should consider Cornell?
I think one thing that's interesting here in Singapore is because it was a British colony before, there's an interest when you're going abroad of either going to the UK or to the US. And one of the beauties of the US system is the liberal arts background, and the fact that you don't have to choose your major until the end of your second year. Within the British program, you can identify your major, you apply for that major, it's a 3-year program, and you just take courses in that field. So for a lot of kids, when they're 18, they're not quite sure what they want to do yet, and they don't want to get locked in. And so the liberal arts education in the US is very attractive. Now, Singapore is very academic, so they're very savvy about all the top schools. And their goal is to get into top school. And so then we talk about Cornell in terms of powerhouse it is, a strong research environment that it has as well. And with Singapore, it's a very safe environment. That's why we stayed here and raised our kids here. Very low crime rate. And so then when they're going outside of this very comfortable, positive bubble in a way, it's the world out there. You actually have to remind them about having street smarts. And with Cornell, it's a huge campus, in a rural atmosphere where you can be very comfortable. You don't have to worry about, having to operate within the city. And you can just focus on your study and enjoy it. And it's a wonderful microcosm, and the world comes to Cornell. So even though you're in a rural location, you aren't isolated. And so we talk about that, and I think that's a really nice attraction for the students, and for the parents as well, because they're worried because they're sending their kids pretty far away. You're directly on the opposite side of the planet, so it's a long distance. I think the main thing they worry about is the weather, because it's tropical here. We're right on the equator, more or less.
Right.
The first question is usually, what do I wear? How cold is it?
It can be tropical here. The rainy part of tropical.
Yeah.
You can do that here.
You can do that here. And we tell them sometimes you get Indian summers in January, which for them might be a bit cold, but the weather is variable. And we told them to buy their clothes once they reach the States. So they'll get thicker coats.
So right before we interviewed you, we interviewed a Cornell student named Casey Hahn, who identified you as someone that had interviewed her
Mhm.
in Singapore. Um, so I just find it really interesting. You know, she talked a lot about her experiences at Arts and Sciences, and she's part of a scholar program. And you know, this Cornell journey, her Cornell journey, uh, it kind of starts with people like yourself and Khan. And do you find that to be a really rewarding experience, and know you were kind of the catalyst for her Cornell career that's really off to an amazing start?
Oh, I'm really pleased for her. Yeah, she's absolutely lovely, and I, remember our discussions with her. And she was also really strong in gymnastics as well, and was teaching gymnastics. And she had, found herself a part-time job and commuting a long distance from her house to her job where she was teaching. But it was at the Shangri-La Hotel. I remember this, teaching trapeze. So it's so cool. So I'm really pleased that she's doing well at Cornell. She's got a lot of interest, and I know she was a strong student. And it is a real joy to be able to work with students, especially they're at a point of juncture where they're making an important decision in their lives in terms of where they want to go, and the fit of the school has to be right for the student as well. So we
Right.
talk about that. I don't try to push necessarily one particular school on the student. I give them a view of the school. Because some people may not like being in the countryside. I had classmates at Cornell who came from the city, and they missed the shopping. And other people got there, and it's like, this is wonderful. I grew up in the city. I didn't know rainbows were real because I never saw them. My roommate said that. And so it's a wonderful playground for them to get to. And so, you just tell them what the school's like, how much you liked it, what you liked about it. And hopefully, through your enthusiasm, that might resonate with somebody as well. Um, and then with the students too, we have people who have been accepted who unfortunately may not have all the funds available for Cornell. So, we try to search around among the alumni base for people who might be able to help out. And there are some very generous people out there. I think that's why, with what you're doing, this Giving Day, it's very important because there have been well-qualified people who may not necessarily be able to take up, Cornell's offer of admittance. And that support is welcome.
Yeah, I think Giving Day and fundraising like this, we've talked with a number of people today who have said that it's really key in getting talented international students to Cornell because of the costs associated with that, because of and oftentimes some of these international students are first generation college students. So yeah, certainly we've had a number of people really kind of give a plug for supporting international student programs and scholarships and things of that nature.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, here because U.S. Embassy has some kind of initiative to try to know that the alumni comes from U.S. schools, for Ivy League, the club, and education. But you also have the in this region also with these schools, schools, focusing the customer, but also they moving up in especially Singapore is, I think, 25 internationally, and its school fees, I think, might be about 5,000 for the locals a year. Cornell Hotel School came here, and for a while had a master's program tied in with on the Nanyang Technology University campus. So I also work with the first dean there, Judy Segal. So we try to promote her activities to the greater community, to the Cornell community. And in talking with her, she said, it was very difficult for her because she had to promote the school, but in terms of the cost, the tuition cost for a U.S. school is much higher than for local schools. And so to try to get in the international students, it was a challenge, and they needed additional funding because while there are some very wealthy people in the region, for the most part, the region still is slightly more middle class. So it's harder to have them think of going to a U.S. named school for their education. And I've stayed abroad. I studied international relations. I love the international field. I've stayed abroad, and with my children, I try to give them as much international exposure as possible. And so for domestic schools in the US, it's very important to have that influx of the international students because it opens your mind to other areas, to different ways of operating. And that benefits you when you go out into the workforce. I've certainly been able to leverage on that. So I've really appreciated that. Yeah. So I think it's great to bring in the international students. The funding is an issue for international students because there aren't the scholarships available to them. And competing schools do offer, because I also doing this con thing, I go listen to some of the other schools, admissions talks, and some of the other schools do offer scholarships to international students. So in terms of being able to compete, Cornell has to consider some of this as well.
Well, Susan, we have just a couple minutes left. I want to thank you so much for making time for us and coming to us from Singapore. And my last question would just be, who do you want to kind of make a plea for in terms of where you think people maybe, if they haven't made a gift yet on Giving Day, where would you try to convince them to place it?
Okay. I thought you were going to ask me about the U.S. elections because you start with who.
I don't think I want to touch that this late at night.
No, for me, I give to the library. And for student scholarships. For me, I love the Cornell Library. I work at the library. When I give my spiel on Cornell during the acceptance reception, I talk about how Cornell was founded by Ezra and Andrew Dixon White. How White had done the European tour, saw the Bodleian Library at Oxford. So they built this incredible library at Cornell. It's a wonderful resource. 8 years ago, I went to a reception celebrating the Institute of Southeast Asia Studies, which is a think tank here. And Lee Kuan Yew was the keynote speaker. And he spent a lot of time thanking Cornell, which is fascinating. And he thanked Cornell because when they were setting up the think tank, the Southeast Asia region had gone through a lot of wars. And so they had lost their history. There was no paper documentation left. And they actually found their history in Cornell because Cornell's library had a lot of the documentation. So they rebuilt their history. So Cornell's given a lot to this region, and a lot to the world. And so I think, starting with the library, that's my pet project. So I would give to that, and certainly the scholarships for students.
Well, Susan, I want to thank you for joining us tonight, but I also want to thank you for just being an outstanding ambassador for Cornell. I mean, to put as much time and effort in as you have in all the different places you've been around the globe is really impressive. And I think it's just an outstanding example of the Cornell spirit that is very unique to Cornellians, and is, while we're celebrating all that we can do with philanthropy today, we're, one of the big points of this broadcast is to highlight people like yourselves that are really advancing the university. So thank you so much for what you do for Cornell and for joining us tonight. And we hope to see you soon, maybe back in Ithaca sometime.
Will do. Well, thank you, Keith. And thank you for doing this all day. And give to Cornell. It's wonderful.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Susan. We're going to take a brief break. We'll be back in about 6 or 7 minutes. With Paul Salvatore. So come on back, and we'll be speaking with Board of Trustee member Paul Salvatore.